Hello, everyone. My name is Jalisha Dixon, and I've been your classmate during the semester in this course. And my topic is about affordable housing and why it's a complex issue in the greater Cincinnati area. I chose this subject because it's something that's very dear to me in my heart. I've had personal bouts of issues with affordable housing, and it made me think about what if I had to worry about children or a spouse in this situation and how hard that would be. And so I wanted to learn more about affordable housing and why it's an issue. In my presentation, I want to talk about what affordable housing is, how it became an issue, what are some potential solutions, and what would happen if nothing is done to resolve this issue. So let's go ahead and get started. Um, Again, there are numerous reasons why affordable housing is a complex issue, but one of the reasons that most people would not think uh, about how this became an issue is that most people don't know how to define affordable housing. Some people think about Section 8 or they think about government project housing as affordable housing, but it's actually not that simple. When most people think about affordable housing, um, the definition used to be that it was one third of your income towards rent, another third of your income towards groceries and other miscellaneous everyday bills, and the last 30% is for investing and saving. However, that looks different for everyone. So if you are a person that lives in New York or Los Angeles, you are not able to invest 30% of your income every month, and one third of your income might not even cover half of your rent. But then there's also other discussions about what exactly is that one third of your income. Is that going to be just what the rent is? Is that going to include utilities? Is that going to cover rental insurance? So some people went back and forth about what that one third actually is with affordable housing. But now experts in housing are stating that it just varies and that the definition is subjective because it depends on how many people are in your household, what the income is it steady, and if that rent is going to include the utilities and other things that you need in the household in order for it to function properly. And so now that we know what affordable housing is, how it could affect everyone, and how it is subjective, it's kind of like, okay, well, I can see how it became an issue. But once I was doing my research, I was actually a little bit surprised about how it became an issue, even though I shouldn't have been. So, one how it started was actually with the Great Depression. The Great Depression was a really big issue in regards to housing. And so there were programs that were created, such as the Federal Housing Administration and the Housing Department of Urban Development in the U.S. that was created. The FHA is actually still around, as well as HUD, Housing of Urban Development, and so those were programs to help people just be able to afford the down payment on a home or just able to afford renting. It was to help because so many people lost their homes while they were dealing with this depression. And things were starting to get pretty good until the Nixon administration. Nixon administration actually cut a lot of the federal programs. Some that I did not mention, they no longer exist because of the cutting of those, and he cut a lot of funding. And so a lot of nonprofit organizations were started so that they could be able to help other agencies create affordable housing for other for people. And so that was a really big backstep in affordable housing. But then things got worse when the Great Recession of 2008 hit. It was kind of like the Great Depression all over again with housing. A lot of people lost their homes and couldn't afford housing. And then we got now with COVID-19 another step back in affordable housing of people losing their jobs, inflation, and with this pandemic, it's just been really hard for people to be able to afford a home with lack of funds and a job and things of that nature. So now that we know how it happened in the United States, we can learn how it happens specifically with Cincinnati as an issue. Well, one of the issues here is the city and state funding. Since we aren't getting funding, since the government is not providing enough funding for its own programs, in a sense, we're not able to get funding from the government in order to get affordable housing for the city. And so this causes a huge problem in regards to how we can maintain and update and upkeep affordable housing, but also creating new properties for affordable housing. Another issue is gentrification. Specifically, one of the most known cases in Cincinnati is the over the Rhine area. That area has been gentrified in the last 10, 15 years. And the problem with that is that the people that originally lived in over the Rhine, when things were remodeled and redone, the price of the rent went up, but they could no longer afford that rent. And so now they have to move into another area. However, it might not even be as affordable as over the Rhine previously was. And so that causes the issue of homelessness for most people that are in that situation, or they have to go live with their family, which might not even be a safe option for them, depending on the situation that's going on. So that's a huge problem that made affordable housing a huge problem in Cincinnati. And the third thing was a little bit surprising to me was legal obstacles. There are zoning laws that prevent, that's taken the city time to try to figure out how they can even build more affordable housing because of zoning laws. We also got some historical areas that can't be touched, and so that causes big problems for Cincinnati as well. But now that we know what the problems are, it's kind of like, okay, how can we know what some potential solutions are for Cincinnati? And I actually was surprised that there's a few. There were a few articles I read that actually really detailed how some small programs are working to change cities. And so and there were some other options that I was actually really surprised about too, about how this could get resolved. I think the one that surprised me the most was housing investments, where agencies or groups of people can invest into housing. There was actually a survey done in 2019 that reported the impact investing resulted in the financing of 11,000 affordable housing units, or 9 units per $100,000 invested. It also facilitated access to affordable housing for an estimated 37,000 low-income individuals, including supportive services linked to the provided housing. So just with investing being done, it can create a whole lot of units for a lot of individuals, a lot of families, and that's a really awesome thing. Another thing with these investments is that you can see here, I have a picture of an Inhale home. Inhale is actually a agency that creates homes. This is in Texas. And they were able to create a lot of homes there. The rent is about $42 for each person that lives there. So it's a really, really great, safe, beautiful home that doesn't have to look bad. So, yeah. But now that we know some of the solutions, well, what would happen if this issue continued? And some of the things that homelessness would increase because there's nowhere for people to go if we keep gentrifying areas in Cincinnati. That taxes could increase. Since the city can't afford affordable housing right now, a lot of money is going to our homelessness programs, and since we're not taking that income to programs to help invest in affordable housing, it causes a conflict. And so then it begs to differ, what can we do to even start the change? I really think that if more people start talking to the city or start getting involved with their local politics or even donating to certain agencies to help fund affordable housing, we can really get this issue resolved for not only the greater Cincinnati area, but for the rest of the country too. And so here are some of my resources. I really hope that you guys love my presentation and learn more about affordable housing and how we can resolve it and why it's an issue. Thank you so much, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your semester.